Hello, welcome back to Gas Studio Tabletop Football, where we're looking again at these floodlights. And in particular, I was working on the solution that I had found, which sort of centres round these mini little LED lights. Now, if you remember last time, I was talking about cutting off the sort of clip that was on the top there. Managed to do that with a Dremel. Turns out the material that they're made of is, of course, aluminium. That's why it wasn't magnetic. So you could probably cut through that with a junior hacksaw or something similar. If you've got access to a Dremel or something similar, you can use that and it goes through it like butter, to be honest. So I was able to cut, it's basically a little sort of hook like that, which had almost like a carabiner clip design there. Cut that off and then used a metal file just to get it smooth. When I dropped it into the housing, I did find that I had to, are you on camera? Or am I on camera, I should say. I did have to file down only about 0.5 millimetre worth of the aluminium on that side. And then it fitted in like a dream. Now, before we go anywhere, you will notice that I have painted the housing this blue. Surprise, surprise. Did you expect anything else? And now this drops in there. Now, before I drop it in there and show you what it looks like, you may notice these little bits of plastic in here that look a bit like matchsticks. Now, they're actually bits of spare Subutio tower. It's one of these that was broken up. And I used that in there because what I noticed was when I dropped this light in, because I put a washer in the bottom to secure it a little bit with a magnet, it was sort of sitting, rather than sitting flush against the back of the thing, it was sitting on the magnet, sort of rocking around a bit. And so when you're sort of trying to manipulate the button on the top or the charging cable at the bottom, it was like rocking around and missing, sort of moving around. So I stuck a bit of that plastic rod in there, and that seems to be enough just to secure it in place, just hold it in the right sort of place where we want it to press the buttons. Now, how do we press the button? Because if you remember, we didn't have a hole in the top. Now we do have a hole in the top, and that looks like a very neat, perfect circle. So how are you going to do that? Now, I did use, again, this is this isn't an advert for Dremel, by the way. Dremel are not sponsoring this video whatsoever. All it's just I've been using their tool. So I used for that this sort of it's like a sort of glass covered sort of sanding tool, rust sanding tool. And what I found, I was able to get the tool on there, spinning fast, and it essentially sort of grinds and melts its way through. And these are very neat hole there. Now you can do that with any sort of tool, don't have to use Dremel. Other miniature tool jobbies are available, I'm sure, out there. But even if you don't have a sort of miniature tool that does those sorts of things, you can do something that I often do when I'm trying to put holes in plant pots. Now, if you're ever trying to sort of put a hole in anything plastic, in particular, as I would tell you in this example of plant pot, what people often do is they'll drill them through, or sometimes if they're really brutal, they just smash them through, and then you end up with a cracked thing. What I do is I usually get a piece of copper pipe, heat it up with a blowtorch, and then just gently put that on the bottom of the plant pot, and it melts a very neat hole all the way through. And it also has a bit of a sort of rim on it that toughens up the hole, really, so stops it splitting. Now, you could do a similar thing with this. If you get a smaller piece of metal, watch your hands, of course. In fact, I'm not suggesting you do this. I'm just saying I would do this. So you could, or I could, heat up a bit of metal and do a similar thing because it's just the right size, and just melt that through. But I'd obviously have to watch my hands and wear all appropriate safety equipment. But nonetheless, I used the tool, the multi-tool, mini multi-tool, managed to get a hole in there. I also, now you might not be able to tell because it looks so professional, I also managed to extend this hole here. So that hole was only about that big. So I extended that all the way down there, and that gave me access to that inside wall, which meant I could extend that hole up as well. Again, with the same tool. Where is it? Over here. So in my case, I drilled that one out like that. Can you see? I drilled that one out like that. And then I was able to get in and drill that one out like that. Very careful, precise work, but nonetheless I got it done. And that means that when this is all put together, we can fit the cable in there now, and it will sit in the bottom of the lights. Now, in cutting this to shape, there was a mistake. And I put this in the vise, and somewhere in the journey, that sort of plastic front, that glass there, it's sort of depressed in a little bit. Luckily, the light still does work, but I was a bit concerned there for a minute. I thought I'd ballsed it all up. But no, it's fine. So what we do now is obviously we're going to drop that in there. And because it's got them two plastic runners at the back now, it doesn't sort of rock about so much. Oh, I'll tell you how I did the washer actually first. Now you see that washer there. That's obviously got to be right in the centre to correspond with the magnet on that. How can you get that right in the centre? Well, if you cut, I worked out, if you cut some little grooves there so they get round these runners, this reflective plate that you get in one of these fits in perfectly, like that. So what I did, once I cut them grooves, I dropped that in the bottom, and then that leaves a circle mount right in the middle. I basically just flooded that with super glue and dropped a exactly matching sized washer in there. And then you can pick it up with this little nodule and carefully bring it out, leaving your washer dead centre in the middle of that thing. How good is that? And therefore the magnet sort of sticks. So it doesn't really hold it in, but it's, you know, it's just sort of keeps it there a bit. Right, so that goes in there, and then what we do, obviously, is we carefully put the front on here, and that is what it looks like when it's done. And here's one I made earlier. And then we can switch it on. Remember I was talking about what we can use for a button here. I might just leave it because it's not too, I'll be honest with you, it's not too bad. All you got to do is get something like a pencil or a little pointy metal thing, and then you press the button and, you know, that's on. Shall I turn? I'll tell you what I'll do. If you bear with me a minute, I'm going to put both of these on. Right, so they're both on. I'm going to turn the lights out. Right, I'm still here. I'm not leaving you. Got a lot of lights in here. That's that one off. That's that one off. So, this is what our floodlights look like now with the light in. As you can see, you know, quite impressive really. Even though some of the light is slightly obscured by the holes. There's one of the fronts from a different one. So obviously some of the light, a reasonable percentage of the light, is going to be blocked out by the sort of mesh in there. Nonetheless, I think they're quite bright with these little lights in. Right, let's go and put the light back on. Here we are, we're back. So that's that part of them complete. Now let's turn them off. They go down to a dimmer light, and if you press it again, it's flashing, and it goes to a sort of slow flashing light, and then you switch them off. Not going to shine it in your face because it's, I'll be honest with you, they're pretty bright. You don't want to get them in your eyes. I've sort of half blinded myself. So that's the heads of them done. So that's good. That's almost like the complicated bit. And as you can see, I know it looks like a bit of a tight, sorry, off camera, looks like a bit of a tight gap there, but you can get the charging cable in there. So that'll fit in, slots in like that. And then I've actually ordered some new charging cables because I noticed these ones are too short, or I could use these ones really, but they're a bit short. And that white one I had, which is over there, it's got a bit of a fatter head on, which doesn't quite fit in the gap. So I've ordered two matching white ones that are going to run down the bottom of here. Right, so yeah, the next thing is now somehow affix it onto there. I'll be honest with you, now we've cut that larger hole in it, it looks like it might just, with a bit of jiggly pokery, it might just fit on. I think I might have to shave, I don't know if you can see that, shave that back nodule a little bit but it's virtually on, which is good, really. In fact, I could just sort of Dremel it. In fact, I could just force it on, really. You can see it sort of. So we're almost there. We're almost there. I guess I will have to consider where the bloody charging cable's going to go, though. So we'll have to think about that as well. All right, but don't worry about that. I'll work that out. So that's where we're at the minute. Effectively, the complicated bit is done. Oh, and of course you're left, once you've cut the handles off these little aluminium lights, with these nutty little pieces of aluminium that are actually bottle openers. That's what they're actually meant for. So this is one of these peculiar things. When the light comes, it's a light, it's a magnet, it's a clip, it's a bottle opener. So what I might do is to sort of tidy them up and then fix that bit into... Sorry, getting off topic here a bit. This has nothing to do with Subbuteo. Might get this sort of... wedge that into a nice piece of wood from the woodland or something. And then I've got myself another couple of little bottle openers. Anyway, so that's that. Everyone happy with that? Good. Yeah, once again, this is not an advert for Dremel. It's just the tool I've been using. If you're interested, that's what it is. Again, not an advert. I'm not advertising it, anyone. Just showing what tools I use. Because, you know, everyone can see what I'm doing anyway. All right? Anyway, until next time. Up the gas.